Hi there. My name is Christy Beth Kelly, as Priyank already mentioned, and I'm the Associate Dean at Fanshawe College in the English Language Institute. And that's where we have our EAP program. You'll hear a lot of initials like that, ELI, EAP, all of these things. Well, the English Language Institute is ELI, and then the EAP program, English for Academic Purposes. So I'm just going to share my screen now. Hopefully there's no technological difficulties. And I'm going to just go through our program step by step to hopefully help you understand it better. And then if you have questions later, we'd love to hear them. All right, here we go. Okay, hopefully you're seeing exactly what I'm seeing about Fanshawe College's EAP program, English for Academic Purposes. And we're a member of Languages Canada as well. So just to give you a little bit of information about our program, we have 10 levels, and each level is 8 weeks long. We have, within those 8 weeks, we have 7 weeks of teaching, and then the 8th week, we do different things, and I'll get to that in a minute. So your classes that you have 12 hours a week of core, and your core class includes reading, writing, and grammar, all at an academic level. And then you have 6 hours a week of speaking and listening, 4 hours a week of applied, which means you're applying all the skills. And in that course, it depends on which level you're at, but sometimes the themes or the different topics that are included are information about Canada and of Canadian culture and history, or there's other levels where you're doing drama. So it just depends which level you're at. You have different themes in that applied class, but then you apply all of your skills together. And then you also have 3 hours a week of computer support. And within those 3 hours, you have some quizzes to do on our computer platform. And then you also have support from somebody to help you with technological problems or anything you have as well. Okay, so when you first come, if you're coming straight to Canada, or if you're doing this all online, which we are currently doing, we ended our term last term online, and this coming term, which starts on Monday, will all be online. And no matter if we're face-to-face or we're doing this online, you start by writing and doing a placement test. So how are you placed in a level? You could already have an IELTS or an IELTS indicator score, a TOEFL or Cambridge score, and depending on what score that is, we will place you in one of our 10 levels. Or you write our EAP placement test. And that includes a KITE test is what it's called, which includes listening, reading, and grammar. And then it's aligned with the Common European Framework of Reference. You also do a writing component and a little speaking interview with one of our coordinators or professors in the program. So these are our levels. We often don't have a level 1. We just don't often have students that have 0 or very, very, very low English. So mostly we have levels 2, 3, all the way up to 10, just depending on how many students we have in each level. So just so you can see, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide, but this is just to see the comparison of our levels to if you come with an IELTS or IELTS indicator score, a TOEFL score, or Cambridge score, for example. Okay. And this is all on our website as well. So a typical schedule for an EAP student would look something like this. It might be slightly different, but these are the main courses at the main times. So on Monday, you have a couple hours of computer class, computer time, that's the COMP part. And then you also have a speaking and listening class with a professor. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you have core. That's your main course for 12 hours. And it looks like, oh my goodness, it's solid from 10 o'clock in the morning to 3 o'clock. No, don't worry. There's lots of breaks. And it's not just a teacher lecturing you. We have a lot of interaction, small group work if you're in the class, and different work if you're online like this. And then Tuesday and Thursday, you have an applied class. And then Monday, Wednesday, Friday afternoon, you have the speaking and listening. Okay. And how we're doing it online now is for every class that you have, that you see those 12 hours online for core, for example, you will have approximately 6 of those hours in a session kind of like this, like a Zoom type session, where you are meeting face-to-face with your professor and other students in your class. And it's a chance for the teacher to to teach you some things during that time, for a chance for you to ask questions and have them answered, to go over assignments or test requirements. That's the kind of thing that will happen during these Zoom-like sessions. So your core, you would get 6 hours of these type of sessions a week minimum. Your speaking and listening, you'd get minimum of 3 sessions like this, and applied, you'd get a minimum of 2 of these online sessions. And then all the other times online, you'll be getting videos to work through. You'll be getting screencasts, kind of like PowerPoints with talking or video. You'll get different documents to work through. Nobody can be on a session like this for 25 hours a week. Everybody would go insane. So that's why we've broken it up, so that you have some face-to-face time with your professor, but also some other ways of learning as well. Because of course, there's many ways of learning language. Okay, so I've already gone through these skills a little bit, but the main difference between our program and a lot of other ESL programs or EAP, well, ESL programs, is that our main focus is teaching you English, but also preparing you well for post-secondary education. So we set you up really well for whatever program you're going into in post-secondary, whether it's a business course or early childhood education or tourism and hospitality. Whatever it is, in our EAP program, we help to prepare you for those academic skills needed to help you be successful in the next part of your academic journey. So core, as I've mentioned, I've got some things on the screen that you do for core and for listening and speaking. You do academic listening and note-taking. You do presentations. For our applied course, as I've mentioned, you combines all of the skills, reading, writing, listening, and speaking. There's different topics. There's some Canadian themes. And then this is what's really great too, is that if you complete our level 9 and our level 10, the applied course is actually a Gen Ed credit. So that's an actual post-secondary credit. So that gives you a head start for your post-secondary education. You will already have a full credit in Gen Ed. Then you don't have to take as many courses once you're in post-secondary, if that is indeed a credit that you need. So that's great for our students. Then the computer part of your schedule, the 3 hours a week, you have specialized computer lab for EAP students. That's when we're in the actual college itself, when we're face-to-face. But we have a pronunciation grammar software on our computers in the college. And there's a computer technologist that's in there. Now in the online version of this, what we're doing, you have more computer quizzes to complete. And then you also have access to people to help you with different technological problems or different, anything to do with your computer really, that you need extra help. We have somebody that can help you with that. Okay, so for each of our levels, it doesn't matter what level you're in, you need a 70% to pass on to the next level. Okay, 70 is kind of the magic number you need. So each of our levels are 8 weeks. So you have those 8 weeks of classes with core, listening and speaking and applied, plus your computer, and then a week 8. And then our week 8 typically includes a bigger exam near the end. It includes workshops with all different fun topics and academic topics, things like pronunciation, juggling was even offered last term. There's different sports that are offered once we're back into college, music. I did a couple presentations this time that were geared to parents with children, because some of our students are parents with children. So I did a couple of workshops this past term that included the children as well. During that week 8, we also have a graduation. We did our first ever online graduation last week, and it was really fun. We had close to 60 people join us on a session kind of like this. And it was a great time celebrating our graduates from our EAP program. We also typically, when we're back at the college, have an assembly with everybody from every level who come together. We often have pizza and fun things at that assembly. We do field trips in this week 8 and also have different volunteer activities that you can join. Once again, it looks a little different doing this online, but for the regular face-to-face, those are the things that we do during week 8. So we have 6 start dates every year. Our main biggest start date is probably September. I think that's around the world. It seems like that's the biggest time for students to come. but then you can see on your screen the other dates that we start. So our next start date is on Monday, and that's in May. May 11th, and you can see there the rest of our academic year in 2020 and 2021. Okay, so what is different from our program than a lot of countries around the world and how they do education is that we have many small assignments throughout the term. In a lot of countries and a lot of your education programs, often you have one big exam at the end of a level or end of a grade that you have to pass. Well, it's not like that in our EAP program. And it's not like that in most college programs, actually. What you do have, though, are many small assignments. So you learn something, and then you're tested on it. Or you learn another skill, and then you're maybe given an assignment on it. And that's to help you, little by little, learn English, and for your professors to know that you have learned whatever they have taught, rather than waiting to the very end of the term and having a big exam. We don't do that. We have an exam at the end, that comprehensive exam that I mentioned in week 8, but it's only worth 10 to 15% of your full final mark. So it's not huge like in some countries. So I know this might be a little small for you on your screen, but this is a typical where the marks come from our level 8. So level 8 is one of our first exit level, where you could exit our program if you achieve 80% in this level to go on to a diploma program at Fanshawe. But I'll get into that in a little more detail in a few minutes. So you can see your core is made up of 55% of your total full mark. And you have these, what they're called FOL discussions, so Fanshawe Online, that's kind of our computer system that we use. You have a midterm and you have different writing assignments. Altogether, that equals 55% of your mark. And your listening and speaking is worth 20% of your mark, and you have listening tests and different presentations. Your applied is worth 10% of your final overall mark. And for example, for level 8, you write a script in a group with some friends, some classmates, and that's worth 4%. And then you present your written script, either in a video form, or if you're in class, you would maybe do like a little drama in front of your classmates and teacher, and that's often a lot of fun. And then a reflective portfolio where you're reflecting on what you did. And then you can see here, our final writing exam, which happens at the end of the term, is worth 5%. And then that bigger comprehensive exam that happens in week 8 is worth 10. So final exams in total are worth 15% of your final overall mark. And you can see over here how all of these then add up to your full 100%. So there are many ways of learning language, and our approach is a communicative approach to language learning. So what that means is you don't just have somebody like me doing what I'm doing now and just talking. No. That's the lecture. We don't just do that. But we do different group or pair work. We have class discussions, individual assignments. We do have some lectures, of course. We use multimedia and audiovisual to help you learn. So different videos or different things from audio from the radio or various things to help you with your speaking, for example. We also, in regular times when we're back in the classroom and no COVID-19 viruses to worry about, we different times have guest speakers or go on field trips, like the video that you saw that Priyank showed at the beginning. And then we also have some computer-assisted learning, which I mentioned for your computer class. So this communicative approach to language learning means that you get a lot of opportunity to communicate. It's not just one teacher telling you, you have to learn this, memorize this, and memorize this. No, that's not how we approach language learning. You get a chance to learn and practice and learn and practice. And that communication aspect, and that's the focus, is how to communicate well in an academic setting with your English. That's the approach we take. So I mentioned before that level 8 is our first level that you can exit our program at and go right into a program at Fanshawe. So level 8, if you exit with 80%, so you needed 80% in level 8 to go on to regular Fanshawe diploma programs, except that little asterisk there is for except for the health programs. And if you get a 70%, which is indeed a pass, because every level a pass is 70. So if you get 70% in level 8, you can go on to the business fundamentals program. Now level 9, if you get an 80%, you can go on to degree and graduate certificate programs or grad cert programs, or Fanshawe diploma programs as well if you get a 75%. You can see 80% there in level 8 and 75% for the same in level 9, because of course level 9 is a little harder, so we don't expect you to get quite as high. And then level 10, if you get 80%, graduate from level 10 with 80%, you can go to any of the Western University programs at Brusha, King's, or Huron, or main campus. We have an agreement with Western for that. You can also, with 80%, go on to any health programs at Fanshawe. And these are the language, I just have to make this clear, these are the language requirements. You will need to have other requirements to get accepted into the program. For example, a math credit in high school or whatever. There's different requirements, of course, for different programs, but this is specifically your language requirements for these programs. And then you can see 75% for degree and graduate certificate programs, except the health programs, and then 70% for Fanshawe diploma programs. So 80% in level 8, 75% in level 9, and 70% in level 10. And then this credit course that I mentioned as well in the applied. So it's the Newcomer's Guide to Canada. It's taken in level 9 and 10, and you can transfer your credit from your EAP program. It automatically transfers to a Fanshawe diploma program for general education or Gen Ed elective, which once again, it's great. It sets you apart from other students who are starting and they don't have that credit. That's a really added bonus. Okay, clicking onwards. So pathways. Our EAP program gives you the language that is needed and the academic skills to help you in diploma, grad cert or graduate certificate and degree programs. Like I mentioned at Fanshawe and at Western. And we have these agreements as well with all other Ontario colleges. So if you graduate from our level 8, for example, you'd be able to, with an 80% or higher, you'd be able to go on to another college diploma program as well in a different city if you choose. But we want you to stay at Fanshawe because Fanshawe is number 1. Okay. Our EAP graduates go into all Fanshawe programs. They do. It's amazing where all our students go. I used to be a professor in our program for many, many years, for 12 years. And I'm always interested to hear where our graduates go. So they go into culinary skills, into interactive media design, hospitality, motive power technician program, computer program analysis, business accounting, pre-health science, early childhood education, general arts and science, business fundamentals. So, lots and lots, and all programs really. So we help you get prepared for those programs in all Fanshawe programs. So English outside of the classroom. This is something that Tina Martin, she helps with, and Tina Martin is on here somewhere. I'm not sure if she's able to unmute and talk, but she is our student integration facilitator. And we all realize how important it is to learn English in the classroom, but also how important it is to learn English outside of the classroom. And we want to help you with that. And once again, times are a little different doing things online, but still we can help facilitate still learning things outside of the classroom or outside of your computer screen in this case. So we do fun trips. We do things like a camping trip every year with our students where we go and camp in a tent and have campfires. That's such a Canadian kind of thing. I love going camping. And our students seem to really enjoy it every year as well.
I'm here, Christabeth, and
you are here. Great, Tina. Do you want to speak about different things that we do outside of the classroom?
Absolutely. I'm so missing them right now, actually. We have volunteers who are looking at wanting to enhance their resume. They want to build more skills. So we go out and do activities. This term, we were going to go to the food bank, and we didn't get a chance to do that. But in the summer terms, we often will volunteer at different festivals in the community. We have a lot of different activities. For example, we had planned on going to Stratford to see a fabulous play, a world-class play. So that was on our agenda. Certainly we have a lot of different activities every term that appeal to both students and even parents and families. We've taken students, well, you could see on the video, on a trip out to the sugar bush, and the students get to bring their children if they wish, and that's a great little activity, and lots of fun things like that. And there are so many great activities that Fanshawe offers as well, like climbing our awesome climbing wall and going to a yoga class. And as a Fanshawe student, as a EAP student, you are absolutely welcome to do that. We see many of our students in the gym dropping into basketball and that kind of thing too.
Great, thank you, Tina. And Tina helps facilitate all of that. So if you've got your classes, and of course those are important, but being a well-rounded student is also very important. And what that means, being well-rounded, is doing all kinds of different activities and getting involved at Fanshawe and in the community when possible as well. Right now, of course, it's a little different once again with the current COVID-19 situation. However, that's not going to last forever. And already things in Canada are opening up and becoming more and more safe. So there's all kinds of things to get involved with to really enhance your English, but also just enhance your life. We want you to be a happy student and a student that's involved and enjoying your classes as a student, of course, but enjoying life as well. So all of these things listed here are things that we help with, and Tina especially helps facilitate. So there's talk time and conversation circles where you get a chance to practice your speaking even more in more of a conversation type setting, where it's not as academic like in your classes, but it's also a great resource to help you learn what a typical Canadian says and all the slang that we use and the funny words that might come up and different topics that are included in the talk time and conversation circles that might not be included in your classroom academic setting. We have a leadership circle and a guitar club. See there, and Adair Meehan, who is one of our coordinators, he plays the guitar really well, and he teaches students how to play the guitar. And he has guitars at the college for students to borrow to enter this guitar club. And it's a lot of fun. From what I hear and from the students that I hear from, it's a great activity. And we have lots of sports, as Tina mentioned, within the college, plus outside of the college as well. We often go skating every year in the winter. And you can rent skates, and there's a beautiful park in downtown London, Ontario, where you can go skating, and that's so much fun. And badminton and all kinds of wonderful activities, once again, in the college that you will have access to once we're back in the college, and around the community. We do things like coffee house, where we sit and drink coffee and listen to wonderful bands or little guitar players, etc. The workshops that I mentioned, assembly, graduation, all of these things listed are things that we do outside of the regular classroom to really enhance your experience. What does it mean to enhance your experience? It means to make it better. And that's what we want to do, to have a really good experience. Here are some of our EAP students. These students here are students that I actually taught a couple of years ago. And this was on Easter, and one of our students actually made these cute little cupcakes for all of them. So we do fun little celebrations in class too. This is a student who is just in our level 10, and this is her working from home. This is just this past term that we just finished, where we had to work on home. And this is what her classroom looked like in this online world that we're living in right now.
And that particular student was part of our video, found out about sending in information when we sent out videos daily. So she responded by sending her picture of her virtual office space, and we send out daily videos these days with students at home, and we have our support. We have almost like a support group with our talk time and our communication circles for every student, so that they can still feel a part of that group setting.
Exactly, great. This is a picture here of me. My hair's a little shorter at this point, and Claire Marin, who is another coordinator, EAP coordinator in our program. And this is Raquel, and Raquel graduated from level 8 in our program and went on to do a diploma. She's in it now in architecture, And actually, she was a homestay student of mine. She lived in my house with me, and she was wonderful. She was from Brazil. She actually just moved out last week, and I miss her already. It was wonderful to get to know her in a homestay environment as well. These are just a few of the students I've had in the past. At the end of the term, I invited everybody to my house to have a potluck. Potluck is where you bring all different foods and we all share it together, and people brought foods from their country and shared it with everybody else. We have a student here from Bangladesh, from China. These two students are from China, and this student as well, that's Raquel again, from Brazil. We have a variety of students from all different countries around the world, all different ages, all different backgrounds, all different religions, and it's wonderful. We learn from each other. Our students get to learn different cultures, not just the Canadian culture, but all different cultures around the world, and they make wonderful friends with people from all over the place. Here's another picture of our graduation from 2 terms ago. These are a whole bunch of our students who graduated from our program, and we had a little celebration for them and had a yummy cake as well to celebrate their accomplishment graduating from our EAP program. This is what our classes look like this term. This, I believe, is from a talk time or conversation circle. So you see the smiling faces of students working online in the online environment. This is something that's happened in the college in the past too, making jack-o'-lanterns. Jack-o'-lanterns are using pumpkins at Halloween, October 31st, and around that time. And we can just see we have a lot of fun together inside the classroom doing academic things, and sometimes inside the classroom doing these kind of fun activities as well. Our EAP profs and support folks online and offline, you can see some pictures there. Some of our professors, those are some of our level 7 professors, and some of our leadership team here as well. We're all here to support you, all here to help you succeed and help you adjust to life in Canada and adjust to a new academic environment. We are here to help you with all of that. Here's some more of our happy professors. So what is different as well about our EAP program is our professors. They have high qualifications. We have at this point over 50 EAP professors in our ELI program, and they all have high qualifications. A lot have masters or PhDs. Often many have a Bachelor of Education degree, so they're actual teachers, so they know how to teach. They're not just content specialists, but they really do know how to teach well. Everybody has at least a TESOL Ontario or equivalent qualification. That's specific qualifications for teaching ESL or EAP. Lots and lots of teaching experience. Many speak different languages, Chinese or Mandarin or Spanish or Portuguese, or I don't know all the languages that are spoken, but there's many languages that are spoken within our faculty. Many have taught ESL and EAP abroad, so they know what it's like to live in a different country and study or teach, in their case, in a different country. They really understand the needs of students. And what's the best thing about our professors is they're caring and compassionate. They really want for you to have the best learning experience possible, and they want to hear your stories, and they want to see you as a person and hear what your needs are as an individual student in person, and they are caring and compassionate in that way. There I am there, and Tina Martin, who you heard from as well. And Tina, do you want to just speak specifically about your role here as a student integration facilitator?
Sure. Beyond supporting the students for doing some activities, I just try and help them to adjust to Canada. So many people have questions about, for example, healthcare, where to get where to go maybe for their religious beliefs, and how to get a library card, that kind of thing. So how to adjust to Canada. Maybe there's something that happens while they're here from back home. Maybe there's a health concern of a parent or something, and they don't know what to do. That's a hard thing. So that's when I come in and help with supporting them to make sure that they get their needs met, or listening to and supporting how they can maybe get back to their normal situation. I offer extra support for talking, so people can have a chance to have a little bit of support outside the classroom and have somebody to ask questions when they don't know who to ask or they're a little bit uncomfortable about who to ask. Certainly I help them guide them through London and the college. And what people find when they're here is they're so surprised that London is so so friendly and so accommodating for newcomers. They see, just like in the classroom, it being so multicultural. It's like that everywhere in London these days, and people are very friendly. And so I make sure that they know and understand that and know who to talk to. And we also make sure that many students who come here these days are looking beyond a school experience. They're maybe wanting to stay here for a couple of years of education, or even beyond, even looking at staying here for their whole life. So we make sure that we give them a good taste of Canada right from the beginning. And not only that, but we help them to get great experience on their resume, so that if they decide that yes, they do want to stay here, that they have a reference letter from EAP to say, you know what, I did an activity with tree planting, or with the EAP program, and we went out and served meals to homeless people, and they have something to put on their resume. So we give them more than just an educational opportunity. I'm here to make sure that your other needs are met, and if you have challenges, that you know that somebody will be there to support that. And I feel very honored to be that person.
Great, thank you, Tina. So these are just some pictures of some of the field trips we've been on and volunteer activities. This was the tree planting one, I believe, that Tina was mentioning. And over on the left of your screen is, I think that was Ronald McDonald House.
Actually,
perhaps,
that was a soup kitchen. We went downtown and served meals to people who are in a low time in their life and don't have enough to keep them fed, and it was a really great bonding experience, because often people don't see that side of Canada. We have some challenges here too, but for the most part, we're a really very stable country. So it was good for everybody to do that.
And that picture up there on the top is from the maple sugar trip that we went on. We do that every year, and that's a lot of fun to do in the springtime. Usually in March every year is when we go on these trips to the maple sugar bush, and they're so much fun. Last year I went and I brought my son. He was 3 at that point, and another professor and coordinator, Claire, brought her 2 children as well, and some students, as you can see, brought their children. It was just a fun family type event for all students and their families. There's some more examples of field trips we've been on: Niagara Falls, Toronto, Stratford, all kinds of different things there. And volunteering, we've mentioned a lot of these. This picture actually was taken, you can see I'm on that trip with students. This was a couple of years ago. This is a trip that we took to a place called West 5. And it's a very worldwide known place that has buildings and housing that are very environmentally friendly. And everything about that whole area, West 5 area, which is in our west part of our city, is all environmentally sustainable, environmentally friendly. So it was a really fascinating trip to go on with the students. Whoops, I've gone too far here. Another thing that sets us apart in our program is that there's all kinds of college supports available throughout the college. We have lots of supports in our EAP program, but all across the college as well. I'm just going to leave this video. I'm not going to share it today, but this little video just shows all the different services that are available to you as a Fanshawe College student all throughout the college. So I believe you will get this PowerPoint sent to you, and you can watch that little video for yourself. And that little video mentions some of these supports that are available all throughout the college: counseling services, career services. So after your EAP program and your post-secondary program, often students want to stay here in Canada and find a job, or even get a part-time job when they're in their post-secondary program. And we have a whole area of the college dedicated to helping students find jobs, part-time or full-time jobs, and co-op placements and all kinds of things within that center. There's learning supports available for extra help health and wellness. We have an amazing student wellness center, brand new in the last couple of years, with, like Tina said, a rock climbing wall and wonderful gyms and all kinds of exercise equipment. It's a great place. You can get a massage there, all kinds of things. We have peer tutoring. We have library services, housing and residence. Where we mentioned homestay. I've been a homestay parent many times over many years, and it's a wonderful experience. And we have beautiful residence for students as well. We do orientation, college orientation, and EAP college orientation as well. But there's more. What else we do? Really, we help you gain confidence in your English. We help you to find seamless entry to Fanshawe's post-secondary programs. So what that means, we help make a smooth transition from EAP to your business program or your ECE program or your design program, for example. You learn the different things that are important in the Canadian education system that are probably different or may be different from the educational system that you're used to from your home countries. We help you understand more about the expectations of the professor and what we expect from students. We teach you about academic integrity and how to prevent plagiarism and not get caught with any kind of academic penalties. And we really try as best we can to set you up for success for your next steps in your academic path. We know that for most people, the EAP program is just a step in your academic pathway, but we're happy to be there for that step and a very important step that we are to your next steps. So we have English and so much more in our program. So we really hope you are able to join us. And if you have more questions, we're happy to hear them. And I'm going to turn it over to Priyank now to introduce the next part that happens.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Christobeth, for sharing all this information about our wonderful EAP program at Fanshawe College. And hope everybody who is attending got the most out of it and know all the information that they require. But we definitely understand that you might have some questions to ask. So right now is the good time to type your questions in a Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. And we will be happy to answer some questions for a couple of minutes. And right after that, we will be going back to the classroom. So we will start a demo class for level 8 with our Professor Paul here. So we will do that, but right after a few minutes, if you have any questions about our EAP program, if you didn't understood any part of the slides or anything at all, please feel free to type them in the question and answer option here. Meanwhile, I think I will have one of my colleague, Jake, come on over here and talk or ask any questions he may have or he might want to share with the audience here as well.
Hello. Hi. My name is Jake. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening. Welcome to the session. It's really helpful for me as well. Also, as a recruiter, I could understand more details about our program. And I have a question for our EAP on behalf of all attendees today. So, what would be the benefits of learning EAP at Fanshawe? There are several ways to meet English qualification before they get into the post-secondary program. So students are just preparing many schools to meet their English English qualification, and I just wonder what would be the specialty of studying at Fanshawe.
Excellent question, Jake. I'd say there's many things that I could talk about, but two main things that I would say set us apart from different ESL schools that some people may find online or in other parts of the country. One is, I would say, is our professors. So our professors and our support staff and all of our staff that work in the ELI. So like I mentioned before, the professors have higher qualifications and more experience than most ESL EAP schools around. We have very, very qualified, experienced professors, and then all kinds of people within the ELI that help students. Like you heard from Tina, and there's many other people as well, coordinators, and we have support staff to really help support the whole student, not just in academics, but everything about a student, to make sure they are healthy and well and and successful in their EAP program and then beyond. So that's our professors and our staff in the ELI. And then what also sets us apart in our program is in days where we're back at the college, all of the college, the facilities that we have at the college, and all of the supports within the college itself. So like I mentioned, that wellness center, it's a beautiful center for students. And as an EAP student, you are part of the college. So you have access to all these wonderful services at the college. And that really sets us apart from smaller ESL schools or other places that they just don't have all of the facilities and all of the supports available to them. So it's harder for them to succeed. Whereas we want to make sure we have counselors, we have therapists, we have people all throughout the college. A lot of people like yourself, Jake and Priyank, who speak a different language and who can help students in their first language. All of those supports are so important to help students. And students really appreciate that. So I think that also sets us apart. And it's in London, Ontario. I should also say this. Most people haven't ever heard of London, Ontario, Canada. They've heard of London, England, of course. But London, Ontario is a smaller city, and so many students say they prefer to learn and to study in a smaller city. People in smaller cities, I'd say around the world, smaller towns or cities tend to be more friendly to others. There's less traffic than busy cities, so you can get around the city easier. It's still a big enough city that there's lots of services and fun things available for students, but it's not so big that you stay in your group of, for example, Spanish speakers or Portuguese speakers or Mandarin speakers or Hindi speakers, whatever, that there's enough variety and there's enough people that do speak English and other language, but you get a whole different experience in a small city than you would in Toronto, for example, or Vancouver or Montreal, where there's huge groups of people that speak your first language, and you can almost have a similar experience in Toronto as you would in your home country. Well, London is different that way, that we have people from everywhere, of course, but there's not as many people that you really get the full Canadian experience living in a smaller city like London. So thanks for asking that.
I would even add that in your classes you get that. I think last time we were together, we had 52 different nationalities in our classes. And so one of our students commented that being in a class with so many students from different areas of the world made them feel like it was a small little place to practice that was like Canada, because Canada is so diverse and we all value that so much.
Thank you.
Wonderful. That's a great answers to very great questions from Jake. We have another question coming from Lydia. She's asking, do you support students before coming to Fanshawe College? Say like connecting international students so they can connect and support each other before they arrive in Canada at Fanshawe.
Also a very good question. Maybe Jake would like to answer that one. International Center does a lot with that.
Yes, we have several seminars for the international students who are preparing to come to London. And also when they all set in their home country, we have the service called the Fanshawe Cares to support them arrive London safe. So whenever you are ready to fly over to here, and then you apply for Fanshawe Care service, they will take responsibility from there to make sure that you're coming from your home here safe.
All right, that's a great answer. We will take one more question and then we will move forward to level 8 demo class with our Professor Paul. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in Q&A box and we will be able to answer them right after that demo class presentation. But one last question, which is from Jay. It says, does Fanshawe EAP division have a plan to deliver online ELE test to overseas or other cities in Canada?
Okay, so the ELE test, or English Language Equivalency Test, good question. And that's an in-house test that we typically do when we're face-to-face in the college. We're not able to offer that right now, but we have made sure that there are other tests available to students overseas that we're now accepting, that we don't typically accept when we're face-to-face. So we are now accepting Duolingo, and we will be, if not already, accepting the IELTS indicator test as well. So rather, we just don't have the means to do the ELE test in an environment like this at this point, but there are other tests available that can place you in an EAP level or place you, get you into a post-secondary program if your level is high enough. So yes.
That's a great answer. Again, I say that it's the last question, but I do see one interesting question here that we may take again. Are there class participate hours differences between offline and online class? So are there any difference between the total amount of hours that students take participation in? Does class hour reduced if the class proceed to be online even in the September time?
Great question. So I did most of my master's degree online. And in that environment, I forget how many hours it was supposed to be a week. And at first I thought we'd have similar discussions like this all the time online. But then I realized that's not how online learning works. Online learning is a combination of face-to-face type of interactions like this on a screen like this, with Zoom or WebEx or Bongo or virtual classroom is what we call it. But then the other amount of time is made up of videos that your professors have made, or screencasts where your professor is using a PowerPoint that they've perhaps created and talking about it all at the same time, or different documents that they've created that they work through with you. So the hours are the same online or in class, but they just look very different. And you don't have face-to-face time exactly like this for 25 hours a week. I don't think anyone could do that. And I think our eyes would get way too tired and our bodies would get too tired sitting in front of the computer like this, in this capacity, that long. So that's not the best way to learn online. So we're using the same amount of hours and delivering it in all different ways to help you get the best learning experience. Is it ideal to learn language online? No. I will be completely honest with you. It is not ideal. However, our goals are still the same. Our goals, whether we're face-to-face or online, are still the same. We want you to if you start here at an English level here, we want you to learn more and keep learning. And we can do that in an online environment, and we do that to the best of our ability as well, to make sure you are still gaining English, learning English, and getting towards your goals. So it looks different, it feels different. It's for most people not preferred, but we are learning and we are doing the best we can going forward. And we've learned a lot from this past term on what works best for students and what works best in this learning environment. And we're following some best practices to go forward and have an even better online experience for students in the following terms. And I just see another question about when do you think we'll be getting normal classes again? Good question. I wish we had a crystal ball and we could answer that question. All I know is that we are taking direction from our government, and our government is little by little starting to open up businesses, but they're being very careful because their number one concern is people's health and safety. So we live in a very secure environment where our prime minister, our highest leader, takes direction from the health authorities. And so we don't know for sure when we're going back to regular, normal type of classroom setting. So we know for sure May and June will be online. Maybe July and August will be online, but we don't know for sure, and we don't know for September. It could be a little bit of a blended learning where some is online and some is face-to-face in a classroom with fewer students at a distance. We don't know for sure. But as soon as we know, we will get that information out to people. But number one concern, once again, is everybody's health and safety. So that's a great question.
Thank you so much, Christabeth, again. And all right, so now we will move forward with the second part of the presentation, which is an online demo class for level 8 with Professor Paul here. So I will give it a go for Professor Paul, and then let's go to the class level 8.
Okay, well, welcome to my little mini demo. A little background about myself. I'm actually the level 8 course leader. Those little, what you saw earlier in the, that KB showed you about the course content, I'm responsible for that. You know, often when students are finished with level 8, they have me to thank, I suppose, for all the wonderful preparation they got. Before I start, it's very important. Let me share my screen, actually. What am I doing? Here we go. Oh. Okay. Can we see that? Is that okay? Good, good, good. Because it's not popping up where I thought it would do. Before I start, like what I'm going to do basically is a very brief introduction to how we write what's called a prompt response. Prompt response would make up the second writing assignment in level 8. And it's slightly different to the other exit levels, mainly because most of our students will exit level 8 and go into post-secondary in Fanshawe, or perhaps in other colleges, but certainly in Fanshawe post-secondary, and into diploma courses. So one of the things that the students do when they go into Fanshawe, whether they are international or not, is they have to do what's called a RIT assessment. And essentially the prompt response is how your writing is assessed when you go in into post-secondary. So the idea of including the prompt response in level 8 is to give you as best a preparation as we can manage for you to go into post-secondary and succeed. What does it mean if you are prepared well to write a prompt response? It does mean you actually get 4 hours less on your timetable. So not only is it an excellent academic exercise in argumentation, it also has a very practical benefit if we can get you to pass that RIT assessment when you go into post-secondary. So that's basically the idea. This is also going to be a fairly short presentation. Please bear in mind if at any point you feel overwhelmed by any of the information. Normally, I mean, I would be preparing you for 2 weeks to write a prompt. So this would be an introduction only, and then we would do all kinds of developed practices that would basically build up your skills to the assignment. So don't worry if this seems a bit strange at first. I'll do my best to keep it as simple as possible. Okay, so the first thing to think of is, well, what is a prompt response? Well, first of all, it's an essay, usually 5 paragraphs, where you respond to a reading that you have been given. Normally the topic will be fairly controversial to make it easier for you to argue with. And the idea essentially is that you have to make an argument agreeing or disagreeing with the author's ideas. So it's kind of a reading test as well, the prompt response. You've got to understand what you have read, but then there's a certain way and a certain structure that you can apply once you have read a prompt to put it all together. So essentially, like when I teach it quite structurally, because a prompt, if you're doing the RIT assessment, a prompt could be anything. It could be about any topic. So it's not so much a content test. You don't have to know something specifically about the topic. You really just have to be able to understand the topic that you are given. But the one thing that we can teach you in level 8 is how to deal with any topic. And that's really the intention. That's what we're trying to do. An important point to make here is that it's much easier to disagree. It's much easier to disagree. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is because if you think about it, if the author has already written a 5-paragraph essay, they've probably made 3 major points in that essay. If you agree with the author, essentially you have to come up with 3 more major points. You can't just say, I like what he said, so I agree, and leave it at that. You have to develop ideas. And it's very likely that the author's already used the best 3 ideas on that topic. So you're going to be scrambling around trying to develop ideas that are probably weaker. Maybe not, but likely to be weaker. The other reason it's easier to disagree is that it's easier to attack ideas than to support them. Now, I don't mean to actually punch them or anything like that, but it's easier to argue and counter-argue against somebody's opinion than it is to support. If you were in my class for the 2 weeks that I teach the prompt, you would be hearing me say disagree, disagree, disagree almost every day. In fact, definitely every day, and more than once during every class. I'm a very strong proponent of disagreeing with a prompt. So much so that last year, a student went and had a t-shirt made for me, which looks like this. I actually went and printed it up, a Russian boy called Mikhail. And I wear this often, especially on the assessment day when we do the assignment, just to remind people to disagree, right? So that's the point I'm coming from here. So what does it look like? Well, that's what a prompt looks like. That's a standard, okay? This is the prompt that we're going to work from today. It's how we're going to generate a response, what we're going to generate a response from. Excuse me, just got to turn something off here. One second. I just got something to get rid of. Having a minor problem here. Okay. So basically, if we look at this prompt, you can see that there are, first of all, this is time, I suppose, for a poll question. Priyank, if you could ask the question.
Sure, everybody should be able to see the poll on their screen. If you can just answer from the, yes, so we are getting an answer. Paul, can you see the answers coming in?
I can see it. I can see it coming, yes. Well, most people are getting it correct anyway. So basically the idea is how many paragraphs are in this prompt. Well, it's obvious. It's not that, I mean, you have to know what a paragraph is, I suppose, but it's basically a standard 5-paragraph prompt. Yeah, okay, good. So, all right. So that's what it looks like. What are the main features of a prompt? Well, you have an introduction. This is what we're going to mainly talk about in a moment. You've got body 1, body 2, body 3. What do we mean by that? These are body paragraphs, essentially, where you make all your arguments. This is where you do the actual disagreeing. And the bodies will have lots of content in it. This is where you support your arguments and you make your argument. Obviously, we'll also have a conclusion. It's not always nice to end an essay and even an email. You would even a postcard, you would end it with some kind of conclusion. Now, some important features to notice. Here you have the title. You will need that later. Okay, that's important to notice. You've got to include that at the beginning of your introductory paragraph. And also you can see here the author's name. Okay, so in this case, it's George Paterfamilias. That doesn't matter. All you have to it's not a speaking pronunciation class. All you have to do is be able to spell it, really. So that's what a prompt looks like. They generally look like that. Sometimes when you do the writ assessment, it could be a 4-paragraph one, but it doesn't really matter. If it's a 4-paragraph prompt, you write 4 paragraphs in response. Normally in level 8, we focus on giving 5-paragraph prompts. So how do you respond? How do you do it? So you need to do 2 key things. The first thing you have to do is you have to identify the author's ideas. You have to understand what the author is saying. The second thing you will then have to do is you have to come up with a response to those ideas, okay? So, for example, if we're looking at body 1 here, what you're going to have to do is basically summarize body 1. You're not going to include the whole argument. you've got to try to summarize the argument down to maybe one sentence, or maybe even half a sentence, what we would call a predictor. So moving on, we will call body 1 A1, same with body 2, that's A2. All this A1, A2 basically just means author's idea 1, author's idea 2, author's idea 3, as you see here. Okay. So what do we do with those author's ideas? Once we have an author's idea, it is called a prompt response. So we've got to develop or generate a response to it. And that would be called R1. So we'll say author's idea 1, response 1. All the A1s, all the author's ideas are, all the A's are the author's ideas, all the R's are your ideas. They're the ideas that you've developed. Remembering, of course, that we're countering the author's idea. Countering means to basically disagree. A2 or 2, A3 or 3, okay? So these things basically, they are basically summaries. The A1 is a summary of the body paragraph 1 that we saw. If you want to ask the second poll question. Okay. Well, yeah. It's about a 2/3 split there. It's true, A2 is the summary of body 2, absolutely. Thank you for taking that poll. So basically, we can move on and say, once you've identified the author's ideas and you've identified what your responses are to those ideas, you can plug it into something like this kind of structure. And you'll notice that there's A1, A2, A3, or 1 or 2 or 3. If this was a regular class, I would then be going on in the next session to be explaining the relationship between the A1 and R1, A2 and R2 and A3 and R3, and how important they are for building your body paragraphs. That's not something we're going to get into today. I mean, that would, again, remember, it would take a 2-week preparation to prepare to do this assignment. But basically, once you have those ideas identified, you can insert them into this structure. So let's focus on the introduction part. It has 3 main parts: the title sentence, author's claims. You got to state those, because remember, you have to summarize the prompt. And response, the author is wrong because, remember, we're disagreeing, right? We're disagreeing at all times. So in the introduction, you need to do essentially really 4 things. You need to introduce the prompt. You need to summarize the prompt. You need to state your position, so disagree. And you need to summarize your response. And that's essentially, that's it. That's how you build it all up. So what would that look like? Well, you need the title and the author of the article and the main idea of the whole prompt. So you remember when we saw the prompt back there, we could identify clearly the title, and it clearly identified the author's name as well. All prompts will be, that information will be extremely identifiable. The only other thing that you have to worry about then is identifying the main idea. However, a very easy tip for that is normally you're simply rephrasing the title. It's fairly normal for the title of the prompt to express the main idea of the prompt. That's how it works. So that's what it would look like. So you have in students should live on campus. Remember, that's the title. You have the author's name, George Paterfamilia. And then you have that main idea. And the main idea of that prompt, normally you would have read this prompt before I would do this lesson, but I mean, the situation doesn't allow for that. So that's how you build the title sentence. Remembering that you already have identified the author's claims. You have, according to the author, first-year college students should live on campus because they are not prepared to live alone. That's your A1. They can have easy access to different services and activities on campus. That's your A2. And they can connect with international students and vice versa. And that's A3. Now you must disagree. So you clearly state that you disagree with the author, and you must say why, like this. So again, paterfamilia's argument is wrong. Don't mess around there. You don't go, paterfamilia is kind of, sort of, Paterfamilia's argument is wrong. You must state it absolutely clearly. Remember, you're not just writing for a professor, you're writing for any audience. You must, and you can't give them hand gestures while you're writing. You only have the words. And you must say also why you disagree. So first, your students should be able to choose where to live and with whom. So you're basically contradicting the author's argument. And then you got to summarize your responses. Now that's a different thing. There's a whole different area about what are suitable responses and how you generate them. But it might look like this. The author has failed to recognize that all parents prepare their children for the experience of living on campus. That would be your R1, the extra services, or extra service and activities on campus for the students. That would be your R2, and international students and Canadian students, you know, the connection between it happens in class. So these are potential responses to the main ideas of the author. And when you put it all together, you get this. So if you follow that plan, you get this at the end. And these are basically, you know, you have your title sentence, you have the author's ideas summarized, you have a clear statement that the author is wrong and why you disagree, and why the author is wrong, in your opinion. And then you have a summary, or a summary basically of your response to those arguments. So the one thing to remember here is why it's all in red. Essentially, these two parts together all come from the prompt. So they're all the author's thoughts and ideas. It's all the prompt information. You flip, and then the white part here is your response to the author. Once you have this done correctly, everything else should fall into place. All you have to do is support your points in each body paragraph. And that's basically how it works. Normally at this point, then you would get a bit of homework. I would give you a student response to the prompt. You would take that home, or in an online situation, I would post it, and you would analyze it, and you would try to apply the structures from that we have discussed, and you would try to apply it to what you have seen. In class, we would normally break into groups, and students would workshop that together. Obviously, we can't really do that online. If we did just want to do one final poll, which would be the last question. I know we skipped one there. Is it easier to agree or disagree with a prompt? I can give you a clue. Should get 100% for this. Nearly. Bear in mind that you always have the option to agree, and your prompt would be marked accordingly. You don't have to disagree, but what I tell my students is I strongly advise you to disagree. And there's all kinds of arguments you can get into about that. What if I agree with the prompt? Well, that's not the point. It's more of a argument exercise, not a what you feel exercise. So, but then again, as I say, we would have 2 weeks to work out all those kinks. That's roughly how we would start to talk about a prompt. Yeah. So thank you. That's if you have questions, please fire them at me. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Paul. That was a wonderful, just a demo in 15 minutes of the whole thing that can actually take 2 weeks to learn. So again, understand, everybody who is attending this session, that it was just to provide you an idea of how the prompt and the answering to that is look like, but it does take more than a week or at least two to learn this properly. And yes, we hope that you got out some out of this session as well. Now we are open for Q&A. If you have any question at all, please feel free to ask in the question answer. I see here someone has already asked. Lydia is asking here, and anybody here who is as a panelist, Christabeth, Claire, Jake, Paul, anybody who wants to jump in to answer, feel free to. Lydia is asking, can a student add EAP to an existing program?
Yes, I can answer the question. Once you have the program, then you can add EAP through the meeting with our student life coordinator. We're currently providing the service online. So when you make an appointment with our international student life coordinators, they will help you to add EAP to your existing program.
And I'm just going to add to that as well. Some students already have the language requirements for their post-secondary program. For example, they already have an IELTS score that's high enough to get into their post-secondary program. But different students still choose to do our program first because they realize it really helps them with all of the academic skills that are needed to be really successful in their post-secondary program. So like what Paul just taught you about, that was just such a little introduction to a prompt writing, but that's what almost every single Fanshawe student doing a diploma program will do in their very first term at Fanshawe. In this WRIT, or W-R-I-T, a writing, which is a writing and reasoning course, almost every single student at Fanshawe will do that in their post-secondary program. So our program helps you prepare for that and helps you, once again, with English, but all those academic skills. What is academic integrity? That's a really important skill and a really important thing at Canadian colleges and universities. That is difficult for a lot of international students because there's just differences in the way we do our education and the way we write our essays and the way we do our reports. And there's just a lot of differences in education systems. And so by being in our EAP program, it helps prepare you for that. And so you learn, you make those mistakes in our program, which is fine, which you do. And then it helps you be more successful and do even better in your post-secondary program. So even if you have the IELTS or TOEFL or Cambridge scores, you may want to consider doing even one term with us just to get you really familiar with even Canadian culture, Canadian content, Canadian education system, and even the Fanshawe online, the computer systems that you're using. We use exactly the same ones in our EAP program. So once you learn all of that in our program, then you're ready to just hit the ground running in post-secondary. That means you're ready to take off for success as soon as you get to your post-secondary program. So consider that too, even if you have the language requirements necessary for your program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christabeth and Jake, for answering that question. Before I go to the next question, I just wanted to add something for everyone. We just saw EAP level 8 demo class here in 15 minutes, but we do have another level 5 demo class that everybody can take part in. And then you can take a look at all the modules. It is almost 45 minutes to 1 hour long, which is divided into 4 different modules. You will be able to get a further more in-depth idea into how the real classroom environment looks like for EAP. We have all the students participating in the group activity and all the stuff. So you can take a look at it. And for that, you just need to visit the link that I'm just putting into the chat box here. So everyone should have received that link that you can click onto and then later on participate in EAP level 5 demo class, where you will get to see the professor interacting with the live student who were there and who participated in lots of different activities. So that's there. Another thing I just want to add is, yes, everybody will be receiving the recording of this session. It is being recorded. So in case if you have to leave at this point of time, because we know that we have went over a little bit of the time. So if you have to leave, that is okay. We will be sending the recording to everyone who is here and who's not been able to attend from now on. Another question now, let's move forward to the question. I think Jake would be able to answer it. It says, Nouri is asking, I want to ask about difference between study permit and study visa. I'm really confused. Jake, I think you're muted.
Yes, the terms are very confusing. but it's very simple. The permit is letting you stay inside Canada, but the visa is letting you enter the country. So when you have this permit that means that you can legally stay in Canada. But if you're trying to enter the country, then you need a document to allow you to enter the country. That's called visa.
Perfect. Thank you so much for answering that. I think we have answered pretty much all the questions that we were asked for today. If anybody has any other question, we are still around for 30 to a minute so here. And if not, then we are always here for you. Remember, you can always visit our official website at fanshawec.ca. That is FANSHAWEC.ca to find out all the official information about EAP program. And if you need any help at all about, say, study permit, visa, or any question about how to apply, feel free to connect with Fanshawe International. We do have online option available to get in touch with us. I will just find out a link where you can book an appointment with our recruiters who are from all over the world. So you can book an appointment with somebody who is from Russia, somebody who is from China. So you can find a recruiter from everywhere and do book an appointment with them to speak about EAP or any other questions that you may have. And for that, I've just kept the link in the chat box here. Thank you so much. And yes, I think we are almost good to go here. So thank you everyone once again for attending. Thanks Christobeth for the presentation, Paul for showing us how the demo and how the EAP level 8 looks like, and Jake for everything you've done. Thank you everyone. Have a good evening, good afternoon, good morning, anywhere you are. Thanks.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.